Thanks, Shreya, for that generous. So today I am quite curious to know what are your interests and gender and things like that. I hope we get a chance to discuss the Q&A section. Right now I'm going to present a slide show and also talk alongside that. And as Somil notified in the beginning that we will take questions later on, but if you have any questions or you want to ask it immediately, then you might indicate in the chat box, and I think that should be fine with me. So let's just begin, and without much ado, Somil, I just want to tell you that please notify me if I'm exceeding the time limit. I've not timed myself preparing the presentation. So here we go. Right, so can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, right. So, okay, so is this visible to everybody, the presentation in the full screen mode? All right, so let's begin with the topic itself, and how it is structured. And I'd like to thank Somil for helping me choose this framework of the presentation. So let me begin with asking you to think and reflect on this, and maybe we could take it up later on in the Q&A. That what does it mean to have women, marriage, and transitions spoken in the same breath? Why are these three terms connected? Why are these three terms thought of as being studied or talked about, or why are these three terms put together in the title right now, as we can see on the screen? So what I think is there's a very, very deep link of identity, and this doodle that I had a chance to take it in my field notebook, because since I'm doing my field work, I have a lot of scribblings and writings on the notebook. So there's this question of who the woman is and how marriage defines or redefines or makes her who she is today. I mostly talk about the Hindu woman because that's where my research lies. So let's move forward to the next slide, and it's a very simple question. What does it mean to be a woman? Now, as simple as it may sound, this question, it's quite crucial today because it's only the realization of who you are would lead you to the next step of questioning of why you are the way you are, or how we become, or what makes us the way we are. Since as I said, it's quite a simple question, but it's really, if you look very closely, it's not, because it is always being something in a society, is always embedded in. It's not in isolation, or it's not in space or in a vacuum that you just realize that you are something, or you're a woman or a man, or you're a trans woman or a trans man. So what we need to understand as we are focusing on who a woman is and what makes a woman, it's very important to know where it's embedded, where does the power come from, and how the individual negotiates the structural or the larger picture. As people studying sociology, as people studying social sciences, we need to understand what it is for an individual in relation to different segments of power structures, of power dynamics. So here we are looking at what does it mean to be a woman in a patriarchal and a caste-based society. Since we're talking about the Indian society or the South Asian society, let's put it that way. What does it mean to be living as a woman in a patriarchal society and a caste-based society. Now, personally, if you ask me, I do not quite look at patriarchy and caste system separately in India, because I feel that it reinforces each other. It is a unique combination of these two power structures that function on a woman in India. Now, I understand, and there's a caveat here. I understand that woman is not a singular category. So, for this question in the previous slide, what does it mean to be a woman? Is it like a woman from, say, the United Kingdom, Scotland, where I used to be in the last year, or a woman from, say, Marathwada region in Maharashtra? Are they supposed to be the same? Are they supposed to be considered as people facing the same problems? So it's not as simple as a category or a tool to study, or an analytical framework to study some set of people. It's quite complex and it's multi-layered. You need to understand where is that woman coming from, and therefore the next slide or the next question becomes essential. What does it mean to be a woman in a patriarchal and a caste-based society? It only reinforces the structures through the individual, and therefore to understand the conditions or understand the questions of that group, one needs to differentiate as well as associate to a larger framework of the woman, but also differentiate within that it's not the same for everybody, or not the same questions have been are being faced by these women. So let's go to the next slide. So today in today's presentation, I'm going to mostly talk about the Hindu women and upper caste or the intermediary caste women, because I have that's the focus of my research, and that's the people I've been associated with since the past 1 year. Okay, so let's come to this slide. I'm sure everybody or most of us know this, and it's okay if you do not know this. It was a big hit, Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, and to give you a short story, that this woman, young woman, 21 year, is in the UK. I think she's in Britain, and she's the second generation family from India, and she falls in love with this man who's always been in the UK, and they want to marry, and the father doesn't agree, and finally, as all Bollywood movies end, they are together fighting with the family, but also taking the consent of the family. So now the question in this film that I find very interesting is the centrality of marriage, of any romantic kind of a relationship. How marriage is supposed to be or considered to be the final end of any story or any romantic, semi-romantic kind of a relationship. How marriage gives it the final closure or end, because that's where the kind of framework or the mental framework that the Indian society or comes from, and many other societies across the world, where marriage is almost a compulsion, and it defines what kind of relations before a woman can have. I'm very careful by using the word woman, because it's very different for men. Because so I would invite you to wonder or think that why marriage becomes such a crucial dynamics or a crucial deciding factor of a woman's life, even before she's married. Even when a girl is born, she eventually comes to know that one day she's going to be married to somebody like her mother and her other relatives, and she might be living somewhere else and not with her parents. So there's this background, or the backdrop is always there for a girl's upbringing, and once she nears puberty and post-puberty period where she's home, she's actually constantly given this kind of training, or where she's supposed to be doing certain things and not supposed to be doing other things, because she has to be going somewhere else. And running that other household where she's going. In this particular film, what is interesting is how the father of the female protagonist, Kajol, is very adamant on controlling what the woman or the girl, his daughter, should and should not be doing. So she actually negotiates her freedom, where she asks for a Europe trip to her father to live her life before she gets married. Now, that gives us a question: what does it mean to be living your life before one gets married? Is it like the life ends after marriage, or is it like you are not allowed to do it? So that's an interesting question, and I ask you to keep that in mind while we further our discussion. So, I already discussed this part. What role does marriage play in the gendering of girls and women? Now, what do we mean by gendering? And I'm sure you all must know, and I'm quite running the risk of being very simplistic in the presentation, but nevertheless, I think simple questions are something that we must keep on pondering, because these questions are not very simple as they might seem in the first instance. So, what role does marriage play in the gendering of girls, women? Now, what do we mean by gendering? And what do we mean by marriage playing a role in gendering? Now, like the very famous quote by Simone de Beauvoir in her book The Second Sex, that woman is not born a woman, but she's made into one, right? And I am aware that there are many other counter arguments to that very famous statement of Simone de Beauvoir, but let's just hold on to that statement of Simone de Beauvoir. And so, for example, Luz Irigaray, she is one of the persons who rejects this idea and says that a woman does not even find a space in the language of male. So she's not even a part of that. Whatever she says or talks, or whatever her role or name is in that economy of language, it's all decided by the man, and the rules are made by the man. So what Simone de Beauvoir says, that a woman is not born a woman, but she's made into one. So we are interested in the process of making of a woman. Making of a woman would include a lot of things, that how she's made to think that she is a woman, how she's made aware of the fact that she is that part of the population which is responsible, which is supposed to do certain things, not supposed to do certain other things, and some things are a duty. What are the frameworks, or what are the mindsets that one associates in making of a woman? So this process of making of a woman is generally referred to as gendering, where she's made aware of who she is, or even the pronouns she and he are embedded in the language that we are using. And I know that there are so many Indian languages, I can say Bengali is for one, which doesn't have specific or differentiating pronouns for, say, men and women, which doesn't mean that it's out of the patriarchal language structure or the mindset or the frameworks that I was talking about earlier. But it's one of the things that stands out in that language, where you do not have a pronoun. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying, that what we're interested in understanding what it is that makes a woman, and what are the processes that makes a woman. And mind you, they're not one. And mind you, they're not dictated by one system or one power structure. They are multiple, and they're endemic to different locations and different cultures. So while we are talking about South Asia, or while we are talking about India, caste, for example, becomes one of the most important power structures and dynamics that we are deciding factor in gendering a woman in a particular manner. This is not to say that there is not a unity, or I'm just not diluting the power structures into fragmentary endemic situations. I'm trying to make it more complex and nuanced. Not to say that there's not an overarching patriarchal control over women across the world, across the globe. And who knows if there's another world, there would be aliens and they would be doing something similar. Who knows about that? So, so I'm not diluting the overarching power dynamics, but that power dynamic has its own nuances and has its own stories that we need to understand the society that we are living in a better manner. So what does marriage do in the process of gendering? Now, let's get back to this slide. So in this slide, in the movie, I'm going to take examples from the movie. When she asks for the permission for a Europe trip from her father, she says that this might be my last chance to enjoy my life, live my life to the fullest before I get married. Now, this means that she's negotiating freedom from her father. She's negotiating some kind of laxity in the control that he has had over her in her pre-marriage state. And now she's negotiating that freedom for, say, a month, I guess. If I'm not wrong, it's a month-long trip. And because she doesn't know, is not aware of the fact that what kind of freedoms that she's going to get when she gets married. Now, this is a very uncertain phase, I would say, of a woman's life, where she is old enough to get married and she's not yet married. So now this phase is, I think a lot of anthropologists use this term called as liminality. Liminality is usually used in ritual processes, where the ritual of initiation, where there's this small period of time where you're neither here, neither nor there, and you're in that middle phase where that's nowhere. It's like you don't know where you belong, but eventually you transition into that other part. So now this phase of liminality, where you're not married but you're old enough to get married, is a very crucial period of understanding how gendering works, because that is the time, and even before that, like when a girl child is born and when she starts to understand things, she's always socialized and cultured in a particular manner because she's to be sent to somebody's place. What she's supposed to wear, what she's supposed to, the way she's supposed to talk, education. Because, I'm often told around my circles that, how long are you going to study? Because if you study a lot, you not get a guy as educated as you are. So I often wonder that why is my decisions or life choices dependent on somebody who's not yet present in my life. I'm just giving you an example. How are my decisions dependent on somebody who's absent, completely a void in my life, based on that? So this marriage, this is what gendering is in a very simple way, if I have to explain that. It is supposed to be something that you're made to be, made to believe that you are. Now, the interesting question now is, how does individual women negotiate through this dynamic? Because this dynamic is evidently there. And I'm sure all of you might have had examples in your life where you have heard these people telling you about being a particular way. And so how this process is normalized, because that is a part of your everyday. It is a part of who you are and what you listen, and you're exposed to these things, and it becomes very normal to you. You never give it a thought. And I am welcoming you, everybody, that you must to redefine gender. The title of the web series, the web talks, is to question what is normal, question what is given to you, question that why is that? And I would give you a sign of warning that it might not be very pleasant every time. It is questioning your own grounds, questioning your own normal world around you. So it's the process of questioning that leads you to another question, and how you then navigate through it. You become more yourself, irrespective of what you're told to be. So that is very interesting, how women negotiate these freedoms, how women find her own way in all of these complex matrix of power. Yes, this is a very good example, and I'm sure you have had hilarious encounters on these pages. So these are matrimonial advertisements, and now we all also have like websites and other online platforms. Which so the recent one I think all of you might know is like an IIT IIM marriage bureau where people from IIT IIM across India get to choose their partners. Now that's one thing. Now you can just see that. Look at the first one. I hope you can see the pointer. There's the fair vegetarian. Then the second one is non-Manglik and Kashyap, and that's the caste. Then you have beautiful, slim. Then you have wanted, good-looking, educated, homely girl. Okay, I am quite at a loss to put meaning to what homely means. Yeah, so the obvious highlight is innocent divorcee. I think it refers to a non-consummated divorce marriage. We may not have had a sexual relationship in that marriage. Innocent divorcee. And I wonder why these factors or questions become important at marriage. Why are these? So this also is a gendering process. This also is making you feel that this is what is wanted at a very subconscious level. And this is not the only thing. There are so many other things, like, you need to be fair, you need to be beautiful, you don't need to be look a certain way. If you say are a little overweight or obese, the medical terminology for that, you're made to reduce weight just because you're now beginning to look for a potential partner for yourself, or your family is doing that for you. In, I think, 93% of cases, the statistics I'm going to come to eventually. So how are these processes forming or maybe hiding? I sometimes want to use that word. It's that what you really are or what you really want to become has been quite buried under all these expectations with you, and buried under all these wants from different people. It's not just for marriage, but so many other things. If you come from, say, the upper strata of the society, that is the upper caste of the society, then there are certain rituals, there are certain do's and don'ts that you have to follow or not follow. Then if you're coming from, say, the quote-unquote lower caste of this society, then your body and your persona becomes accessible to other people as and when they want, and nobody can question them, because and we've seen these things in villages, and villages as in the recent examples of, say, the rape of Dalit girls, the Bot Mange case, and so many other examples. And unfortunately, the system doesn't seem to recognize this and address this in a very strong worded manner. So there are different kinds of exposure to problems that one faces according to where you're situated in the hierarchy of the Indian caste system, as well as who you are. So there's this famous example of the Mandal Commission when upper caste women took to protests because they said that Mandal commissioned the reservation for work for the OBC. So the upper caste women took to protest against this government decision because they felt that they would not want their future husbands to be out of jobs. Now, this is quite interesting, and this is quite at point in what I'm trying to say, that it's like they don't even know. So it's a given that they're going to marry with a person from their caste, and because of this new reservation policy, these future husbands, who probably they do not even know, are going to lose on the opportunity to have jobs. Right. So this is something I have been working on partly, and I'm using this aspect, and we know that Leela Dubey and the likes of her, scholars like Leela Dubey, have been working on understanding marriage and the dynamics related to marriage, vis-a-vis rituals and Hindu socialization of young girls and all those things. And I'm sure you all might know about it. So here's my argument, or here's my 2 cents in this, where you say that how can marriage become an analytical tool to understand the gendered power relations in our society? Why marriage? Because I feel that marriage is very important gendering factor in a woman's life, like I just hopefully made sense in the earlier slides. And because of that, her entire life choices and life decisions revolves around marriage, even if she is not married, or even if she. And let me just tell you that not marrying is is not an option when you are negotiating not marrying. I mean, it's a very complicated kind of a thing, because there are questions and there are pressures and different kinds of people come to you and tell you that what's wrong with you and things like that. So it's a given that it's a convention, it's a tradition, and it's a given fact of the South Asian society that marriage is a must, unlike many other societies and cultures in the West world, excuse me. So how can marriage become an analytical tool to understand the gendered power relations in our society? Now, understanding marriage either ritually or legally, or say at an everyday level, I'm not sure what that sound was it for me? Okay, so I'll just quickly wrap up. There are just a few slides, few important slides. If I may continue, Somin.
Yes, surely you can just tell us more about your research, and then we can have question and answers after that.
Okay, so this is the analytical tool to understand the gender power relations in our society. So understanding marriage ritually, legally, or say through other dimensions, or the everydayness of marriage, one can understand what is the gender power relation between a man and a woman. And obviously we are here talking about a heterosexual marriage, and we have issues and problems across the system of marriage and the kind of marriage that are legal, quote unquote legal, in the country. So let's just talk about how understanding marriage can open up so many dimensions of a woman's life. For example, a simple story that I got to know from my fieldwork, and it's so simple that it's very powerful. So a person on my field research told me that when she's working, she's working as a housewife, and the husband is going outside to work, and so the mobile that they charge, okay, they share the socket and the charger. So when her mobile is on charge, the husband easily removes it and puts his phone on charge. And the reason that the husband gives is that you're always home, you don't work, and so it's okay if your phone is not charged. It's not as important. That's fine. Now this is quite simple, but it's quite elegant in giving us a glimpse of what it means that the everydayness of power relations. So now, how is a woman prepared for the marriage day? There's socialization and training, body and physical attributes, notions of beauty, and quote unquote homely. Homely, we can have an entire session of what homely might mean. So now these questions, how is that socialization? I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because it's self-explanatory. Now, how does the socialization happen? Why and how is she made to believe? And I'm not saying that it's all men who do that. There are women who are the carriers of all of these because they negotiate their freedoms by accepting norms of society. They negotiate. They negotiate that okay, I'm going to do this and take this freedom for myself. It's not very conscious. It's quite normalized and naturalized in their processes. So when our mothers tell us that now it's too late today, why did you come so late at home? It's not that she, when she was young, wouldn't have faced it, but then she's learned it and she knows that it's quite crucial aspect that the woman or of control in the family, that the woman or the girl comes back home in time. So anyway, what we are looking at socialization and how does it happen? So there's agents, family and social contexts that help in socialization and tell the woman time and again, tell the girl time and again, train her in a particular way that's her normal herself, because she is going to be the carrier from one family to the other in procreation process of that other family. And the norms and systems that she's fed when she's not married by the her own family is carried forward to another family. So we've had things like so I speak Gujarati and we have quotes like Bikri Beg Karne Tare. A daughter brings forth two households, and that's like quite a burden, isn't it? The second is language. So like the quote that I just said, we have millions of such across the country where we have things like तुम्हारी डोली इधर से तो जा रही है but अर्थी उधर से उठनी चाहिए, means that you cannot come back to the nature house if you have patience, because now we are done with it. We have done the Kanyadan and now we have no obligations or duties towards you and you manage whatever it is. So this is, the language, there's things like ladki गाय जैसी होती है, हमारी लड़की गाय जैसी. What does it mean? गाय जैसी, like submissive, docile and things like that. And interesting observation and analysis that one might have of the rituals like Kanyadan is like when Kanyadan is done, there's a small silver cow that is given to the groom by the bride's father, and it's quite symbolic in the way that giving that cow and your daughter. So the field is open for analysis. The second is performance. That's where I'm working right now on my research, where you have rituals, you have practices, you have notions of traditions about women. So I'm looking at the first name changing practices of women post-marriage. So I'm looking at the Sindhi community and the Marathi community, mostly upper caste and intermediary castes among the Marathis, where they have the first name of the changed once she is married. So at marriage, and there are rituals and traditions, practices related to that change. And now the last, and this list is obviously not exhaustive. There are many other socialization techniques, but I've just chosen a few of them. Reiteration of all of these again and again throughout your lifetime. So performance of transitions, the performance part of this is like rituals and ceremonies, onomastic transition, onomastic meaning names. So she takes up the surname of the husband, drops her father's name. Now there's a new patriarch in her life, or the power center in her life, and therefore, or that's where she is associated with, without a middle name or a male name in your name. There are going to be questions on who you are and your character. So that's the onomastic transition. And now the practice that I am looking at is also the first name change. So if I'm Neerja Pathak, and if I choose to marry, my first name might change to say Shweta or something by the liking of my partner or the husband, and so I'll become Shweta whoever. The surname is definitely changing. The middle name is changing. So the entire changing, and so to trace me somewhere, it's going to be difficult because you might not know what my first name is. You would just go on looking for Neerja, and you might not find her. So this is a kind of quite a crucial break from what you were past, and it's a expectation to to be a new person, because marriage is also supposed to be considered as a new birth ritualistically. So there's a residential shift because we are because we follow patriarchality. There's an emotional shift in priorities. You're supposed to prioritize new relations, and maybe there's 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 something that stays also. So this is a crucial question. Is there something that remains, something that perpetuates? What, in this entire shift and transition, what is it that remains? What is it that continues? And that's quite important, I feel, because now the woman is from the father's power control structure or whatever to the husband's and his family. This is something that is very, very permanent. This is perpetual. Like the DDLJ example that I gave, she's negotiating freedom from her father because she doesn't know if she'll be able to negotiate the same kind of freedom from the partner or the husband to be. And so that control or that asking for permission from a male authority stays. And obviously there are differences and there are individual examples, but now since we're looking at the generalistic structure, then this is what we can comment upon. This is the Kanyadan ritual, which I would have liked to, maybe we can discuss it and take it up in the Q&A. And this is the interesting name-changing ritual that I am looking at and studying. So this is a Maharashtrian bride being given a new first name at her wedding. So this is a plate of rice, and the husband writes a new name for her. So from that moment onwards, she's going to be known as the new name. And in most cases, there is a legal change in the in the documents, and there's a legal change for her. So that is what that is how a new name is ritualistically given to the bride. Now let's just move to the conclusion part, and I hope I was relatable in the presentation. I would raise some four points that the study of marriage is quite important to understand how gender power works. So that is one aspect. It raises what the woman thinks of herself. It raises the question of what is her identity. It raises the question of who she imagines herself to be. How does she navigate this liminal space of being not married and then married? How does she negotiate or imagines her future to be? Is there stability in her aspirations, and what does marriage actually give her? Yes, the study of marriage can also point to the changing nature of the socio-political landscape, because if you study couples or if you study women life histories of, say, your grandmother, your mother, and then young generation, and how then the dynamics of marriage has changed, and what are the new things or the changes that have come in the institution of marriage. And like Uma Chakravarti, it also shows the collaborative working of caste and patriarchy, because women are, like Dr. Ambedkar has excellently put it in his essay on caste, that women are considered to be the carriers of the caste system and the protectors of the caste system, because they're also negotiating freedom. They're also imbibed in the system itself. It's not that there's some external subjects on which these systems are applying. They're part and parcel of the whole dynamics of power relations. And that's where I like to end the presentation.
Thank you so much, Neerja. So if there are any quick questions, we'll have that, because due to paucity of time, we'll not be able to take too many questions. There's already one question in the chat box which I'll post to Neerja, Pathak, before all of you ask other questions. So Neerja, one of the questions is that right from the time through civilization, we've been talking about empowerment of women, right? But on the other hand, we see that at several fronts, they feel certain type of insecurity, whether it's as a childhood where they are said that this is not your real home. Your real home will be post-marriage, and even when you're in marriage, you're actually in a strange place. And the final third part that the student has asked is about that if in case the marriage does not work and we see a divorce happening, then again she's in that same insecure position. So what we can do to address that? this insecurity that persists throughout the life cycle?
That's precisely what I meant, and thanks for that wonderful question. That's precisely what what I meant when I used the similarity, meaning that you're not sure you're not there. Not sure you're not there. You're quite confused of who you are because, and then you're not, you know, you're not sure. You don't get the scope or space you are, and that insecurity persists. And there's a sense of stability when your name is associated with it. So if and this picture or that promise is given to you that there will be stability in your life, there will be stability once you get married, and so there will be time to explore who you are. But I wouldn't necessarily use that Raj that there's a stability. Now, when you are actually married, and then you don't find that promise, then you don't get what you were and not to say that this is, I'm talking at the level of structure. Now, when you talk about, say, evils, like actual problems in marriage, where there's molestation, there are things like dowry, there are things like not enough, space for the woman. There's no, and obviously there are cases of divorce, cases of separation, which are not necessarily bad. That if the woman is taking a stand to get out of a marriage, it means a lot. She's not going to be accepted anywhere. She's going to be on her own. So you're very right that there are insecurities in divorce. Then she's also considered to be, because the marriage is not very readily accepted.